Welcome to the Vietnam Perspective Podcast. This is the first episode in our American English series, designed to take you around the globe through Vietnam's unique lens, a fresh, exciting perspective. Let's dive in. Today's episode, Brothers in the Jungle, American Soldiers in the Wild, takes you on a journey with young men, kids, really, who left behind their hometowns, their high school sweethearts, and the comfort of a Friday night burger joint to face the unknown in the jungles of Vietnam. They weren't just fighting an enemy, they were battling a relentless wilderness, their own fears, and the weight of a nation's expectations. Imagine you're a 19-year-old from a place like Akron, Ohio, where the biggest worry last year was whether the Cleveland Indians would make the playoffs. Or maybe you're from Avis. Now picture yourself swapping your Letterman jacket for a green uniform, your baseball bat for an M16 rifle, and stepping off a Huey helicopter into a wall of green so thick it feels like the world's closing in. Let me read you a line from a letter by Sergeant John Miller, a soldier who served in Quang Tri in 1968. I'll never forget stepping into that wet, sticky mud, with cicadas screaming like a rock concert and rain coming down like Niagara Falls. The jungle seemed to swallow us whole. Just me and my buddies lost in a green maze. That letter, mailed to his little sister back in Topeka, Kansas, is one of thousands of stories from American soldiers in Vietnam, regular guys. Like the kid who mowed your lawn or flipped burgers at the local diner. Thrown into a war that tested every ounce of their courage, their story isn't just about combat, it's about brotherhood forged in fire, courage in the face of chaos, and scars that linger long after the last chopper left Saigon. Today, we'll cover the historical backdrop. Why did kids from Main Street, USA, end up fighting in a country most couldn't find on a map? Life in the jungle, the brutal terrain, diseases, and homesickness that hit harder than any bullet. The brotherhood of soldiers, the unbreakable bond that became their lifeline. Coming home, the struggle to fit back into a world that didn't understand them. Lessons for today. What their sacrifices teach us about courage, unity, and responsibility. Grab a seat, maybe picture yourself at a backyard barbecue with a cold Coke in hand. And let's walk through this story together.
Your local Army recruiter presents Army Spotlight.
1. Historical context and deployment. To get why a kid from, say, Des Moines, Iowa, ended up in Vietnam, we've got to rewind to the post-World War II era, when America was riding high as a global superpower. The world had split into two camps, the US and its allies championing democracy, versus the Soviet Union and its push for communism. This was the Cold War, a tense standoff where the superpowers duked it out through proxy wars rather than direct battles. Think of it like two high school rivals sizing each other up, neither throwing the first punch but ready to back their friends in a fight. In Southeast Asia, the US was gripped by the Domino theory. President Dwight D. Eisenhower laid it out in 1954. If one country fell to communism, others nearby would topple like dominoes in a row. It was a fear that hit home for Americans watching black and white TVs, where newsreels showed Soviet tanks in Eastern Europe and Mao's rise in China. Vietnam, a small country halfway across the globe, became the line in the sand to stop that red wave. After the 1954 Geneva Accords split Vietnam into North and South at the 17th parallel. The North, led by Ho Chi Minh, leaned hard into socialism, with Soviet and Chinese backing. The South, with US support, built an anti-communist government under President Ngo Dinh Diem. It was like picking teams for a high-stakes game, except the stakes were entire nations. But the South struggled. Corruption, political infighting, and a growing insurgency made it shaky. In 1960, the National Liberation Front, known to Americans as the Viet Cong, formed to overthrow the South's government and reunite Vietnam. Backed by the North, the Viet Cong hit hard with guerrilla tactics, striking from shadows like something out of a John Wayne Western gone wrong. In 1961, President John F. Kennedy, the young, charismatic leader who'd inspired a generation with his "Ask not what your country can do for you" speech, started sending military advisors to South Vietnam. It was a small step, like dipping a toe in the water. But by 1964, the Gulf of Tonkin incident, where 2 U.S. destroyers were reportedly attacked by North Vietnamese boats, changed everything. Congress passed the Gulf of Tonkin resolution faster than you could say, breaking news, giving President Lyndon B. Johnson a blank check to wage war without formally declaring it. From there, America went all in. In March 1965, U.S. Marines splashed ashore at Da Nang, greeted not by ticker tape parades but by a humid, hostile land. By 1968, over 540,000 American troops were in Vietnam, more than the population of a city like Tulsa, Oklahoma. These weren't just soldiers, they were high school quarterbacks, gas station attendants, college freshmen, drafted or volunteering, believing they were defending the free world, like Captain America stepping off the comic page. Across America, from the neon lights of Times Square to the quiet streets of Mayberry-like towns, send-off ceremonies were held with pride and pomp. Picture young men in crisp olive drab uniforms, standing tall in VFW halls or town squares, hands over hearts, swearing to protect freedom. Their duffel bags held the basics: socks, a shaving kit, a rifle, and maybe a dog-eared copy of Catcher in the Rye or a letter from Mom tucked inside. Think of the cultural pulse of 1965 America. The Beatles were topping the charts with Help. Kids were cruising in Ford Mustangs, and families gathered around RCA color TVs to watch Bonanza. But for these soldiers, that world of drive-in movies and sock hops was about to feel like a distant dream. They were headed for a war unlike any America had fought before. No clear front lines, no victory parades, just a jungle that didn't care about their sacrifice. 2. Life and hardships in the jungle. When these guys landed in Vietnam, the enemy wasn't the first thing to hit them, it was the jungle. Imagine stepping into a scene from Tarzan, except instead of swinging vines, you've got a 60-pound pack and a rifle. The jungles of South Vietnam were a wall of green, towering trees, tangled vines, and a canopy so thick it turned noon into twilight. Every step was a gamble. Viet Cong booby traps, like sharpened bamboo stakes or hidden mines, could turn a routine patrol into a nightmare. Swamps sucked boots down like quicksand, and the air was alive with mosquitoes and leeches that didn't just bite, they brought death. It was like Mother Nature herself was saying, "You don't belong here." The brutal climate. Vietnam's weather was a beast. Daytime temps climbed past 95 degrees Fahrenheit, hotter than a 4th of July barbecue in Texas, with humidity so thick you could slice it. Monsoon season turned trails into rivers, soaking everything from socks to soles. Soldiers said they didn't know what dry meant anymore. Their gear was either wet or wetter. Day 3 in the A Shao Valley. Rains relentless, like God forgot to turn off the faucet. My boots are so caked with mud they weigh a ton. Tried sleeping under my poncho last night, but water still leaked through. I'm starting to think this week might be my last. Disease is a silent killer. If the weather wasn't enough, disease was a stealthy assassin. Malaria, spread by mosquitoes that thrived in the jungle, was public enemy number 1. Tens of thousands of GIs caught it, some so bad they were airlifted out, shaking with fever. Imagine trying to patrol when you're burning up, your head pounding like you'd gone 10 rounds with Muhammad Ali. Even minor injuries, a thorn scratch or a bug bite, could fester into infections in the damp heat. Dysentery, skin rashes, and tropical fevers hit soldiers like a linebacker, leaving them weak and vulnerable. The army handed out malaria pills like chloroquine, but they came with side effects: nausea, dizziness. That could make you feel like you downed a bad batch of moonshine. Combat medics, the guys called Doc, were the real MVPs, stitching wounds or jabbing morphine needles under fire, like Hawkeye Pierce from MASH but without the wisecracks. Homesickness hits hard, but the toughest fight wasn't against nature or disease, it was the ache for home. These guys missed the little things. The smell of mom's apple pie cooling on the counter, the crackle of a Dodgers game on the radio, or the neon glow of a diner sign on a Friday night. In their letters, They poured out their hearts, dreaming of a world where normal still existed. Rain again today, my shirt's soaked through, mud dripping off my helmet like chocolate syrup. Tonight, I lit a candle stub and read my sister's letter. She said Mom baked coconut cookies. My favorite. I finished reading, and my eyes burned. All I want is to go home. Letters from home were like gold, each one a reminder of why they kept going. But sometimes, those letters carried gut punches. A buddy killed in a car wreck. A girlfriend who'd moved on. Or news that dad lost his job at the factory. Every word was a lifeline and a wound, tying them to a world that felt further away with each muddy step. For context, think of 1960s America. Kids were dancing the twist, watching the Andy Griffith Show, or saving up for a ticket to see The Sound of Music. But for these soldiers, those joys were as distant as a Woodstock ticket, something they could only dream about while slogging through the jungle. 3. The Brotherhood of Soldiers. In a place where every day could be your last, one thing kept these guys going: brotherhood. This wasn't just camaraderie, like high-fiving your buddies after a touchdown. It was a bond so deep you'd take a bullet for the guy next to you. No questions asked. In Vietnam's jungles, brotherhood was built in the small stuff: splitting a Hershey's bar from a care package, rigging a poncho to keep your squad dry, or belting out tunes to drown out the fear. Picture a bunch of guys, scared out of their minds, finding comfort in the same songs they'd sung at summer camp or in the high school choir. I'll never forget that night on Hill 875. Johnson got hit in the leg. Blood everywhere. Nobody left him. We patched him up, carried him through the dark, and split our last painkillers when the shooting stopped. That's when I knew they weren't just my squad. They were my brothers. This brotherhood didn't care about where you came from. In the 60s, America was wrestling with civil rights, with tensions high over race and class. But in the jungle, none of that mattered. You had white farm boys from Nebraska, black kids from Detroit, Latinos from East LA, and Asian Americans from San Francisco. All fighting as one. It was like the melting pot your history teacher preached about, except sealed with sweat and blood. Take the Battle of Ia Drang in 1965. One of the first big U.S. fights in Vietnam. The 1st Air Cavalry Division's 2nd Platoon was surrounded, outnumbered by North Vietnamese troops. They held their ground, not just for the mission but for a vow: no one gets left behind. It was like a real-life version of the Alamo, but with helicopters and a chance to fight another day. In the worst moments, when fear screamed, "Run!" it was the eyes of their brothers, guys they'd die for, that kept them rooted. They weren't fighting for abstract ideals like democracy. They were fighting for the man on their left and right. The ones who'd share their last cigarette or crack a joke to break the tension. One song that echoed through the jungle was Sweet Caroline. Yeah, the same one Red Sox fans belt out at Fenway. It wasn't a war song, but its catchy tune and hopeful vibe, good times never seemed so good, gave them a slice of home. Like hearing a jukebox in a dive bar. That brotherhood wasn't just a wartime thing, it lasted. At veteran reunions today, you'll see gray-haired guys in VFW caps, hugging like they just survived another firefight. They still call each other brother, and those bonds are stronger than any medal pinned on a chest. For an American touchpoint, think of the 1969 Miracle Mets, the underdog baseball team that shocked the world by winning the World Series. That same spirit of unlikely heroes coming together fueled these soldiers, turning strangers into family under the jungle's shadow. 4. The return home and lasting impact. When the Vietnam War ended in 1975, with Saigon falling and the last Americans airlifted out, hundreds of thousands of GIs came home. But home wasn't the warm fuzzy they'd imagined. It wasn't like the end of It's a Wonderful Life, with the whole town throwing a party. For many, it was a cold, confusing return. At airports in San Francisco or JFK, some got bear hugs from mom and dad, maybe a homemade "welcome home" sign. But others faced silence, or worse, hostility. By the early 70s, the anti-war movement was in overdrive, with protests on college campuses and Woodstock vibes turning into anger. Some Americans, fed up with body counts and draft cards, took it out on the guys who'd fought. Soldiers were spat on, called baby killers, even though they were just kids following orders, trying to stay alive. Imagine coming back to your hometown, expecting a parade like the World War II vets got, only to find your neighbors looking at you like you'd crashed their picnic. Veterans felt like outcasts, their sacrifice swept under the rug. It was a gut punch, like being benched after winning the big game. The real battle, though, was inside. Post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, hit hard. Nightmares replayed ambushes, screams, or the face of a buddy who didn't make it. Guilt gnawed at survivors. Why them and not me? Studies say 15 to 20% of Vietnam vets dealt with PTSD. Some wrestling demons for decades. Many turned to booze or drugs, chasing relief like a character in a Springsteen song. Born to run from their own memories. I came home, but I left part of me back there. Every night, I see Tommy, my buddy who died in my arms at Khe Sanh. I tried telling my wife. But how do you explain that kind of hell? How does anyone get it? Reintegrating was rough. These guys were trained to survive firefights, not to punch a clock at an office job or chat about the weather at a PTA meeting. Some drifted, like characters in a Kerouac novel, searching for meaning in a world that had moved on. But hope wasn't lost. By the 1980s, America started to wake up. The Vietnam Veterans Memorial, the Wall, opened in D.C. in 1982. Its black granite etched with over 58,000 names. It's a sacred place, like Arlington Cemetery or a packed stadium during the national anthem, where vets and families touch the names, leave flowers, and find a piece of peace. Groups like Vietnam Veterans of America stepped up, offering counseling, job training, and reunions that felt like family cookouts. Slowly, the nation began to honor these warriors, not as symbols of a lost war but as heroes who gave everything. Even now, for vets in their 70s and 80s, the scars remain, some in the mind, some on the body, but so does pride, not for the war itself, but for the brothers they fought for and the stories they lived to tell. It's like the ending of Saving Private Ryan. They earned it, and they carry it with honor. To ground this in American culture, think of 1980s films like Platoon or Full Metal Jacket, which tried to capture the war's raw truth, or Springsteen's Born in the USA, a song many vets adopted as an anthem, its gritty chords echoing their struggle to come home. 5. Lessons and timeless messages. The story of Vietnam's jungle warriors isn't just history, it's a mirror reflecting who we are, what we're capable of, and what we owe each other. From their sacrifice, we pull 3 big lessons. As American as apple pie and the 4th of July. The strength of teamwork. When the chips are down, it's the people beside you who get you through. These soldiers shared their last MRE, covered each other in firefights, and proved that unity is stronger than any jungle. It's like the 1980 US hockey team pulling off the miracle on ice, impossible odds. Unbeatable spirit, courage under fire. Every soldier, scared or not, put their brothers and mission first. They weren't chasing medals, they were honoring a promise. That grit lives on, like Rocky Balboa going the distance, showing us what it means to stand tall. A nation's duty. Vietnam asks tough questions. Why do we fight far-off wars? How do we treat those who serve? It's a call to learn from the past, to make smarter choices, and to never abandon our vets. Think of it as America's homework. Get it right for the next generation. This isn't about pointing fingers or picking sides. It's about saluting ordinary guys, your neighbor, your cousin, the kid who delivered your paper, who faced extraordinary trials. They were young, full of dreams and doubts, but they stood together, fought together, and survived for each other. That's the heart of their story, and it beats as strong as Old Glory waving in the breeze. Thanks for joining us on this first ride with the Toản Phong Thuỷ Podcast. We hope Brothers in the Jungle has opened a window into the Vietnam War, not just as a conflict, but as a saga of brotherhood, bravery, and lessons that hit home like a Sunday sermon. Got a story, a letter, or a thought to share? Drop it in the comments. Hit like, subscribe, and ring that bell to stay with us for what's next. We'll see you for our next episode, Tet Offensive 1968, the turning point on American TV. where we'll unpack a moment that flipped the script on how America saw the war. Have a peaceful day, folks.